Is the matric pass rate a reliable benchmark of the education quality? Why is there such a high dropout rate between grades 10 and 12? Is the Curriculum and Assessment Policy Statements, CAPS, the ideal model for South Africa? What should happen to those implicated in cheating? What time is it? It's question time. Hello and welcome to the program. My name is Bonge Kwala. In from Port Said today, following the historical 2013's 78.2% matric pass rate, the highest in South Africa's 20 years of democracy, the class of 2014 has dropped to 75.8%. Among other factors, the Curriculum and Assessment Policy Statements, CAPS, implemented for the first time during last year's examinations, is said to have posed a tougher challenge to candidates. This being a new curriculum meant that teachers and learners did not have previous examination papers to revise with. Another cause for concern has been allegations of cheating in several provinces, with KwaZulu-Natal and the Eastern Cape said to have been the chief culprits. But are teachers and learners well disciplined? Well, let's find out today, because I have my guest in the studio here, Dr. Mafu Rakometsi, the Chief Executive Officer of Umalusi, and Professor Sarah Cravett, the Dean of Education at the University of Johannesburg. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Doc, let me start with you. At Umalusi, are you satisfied with the outcomes of the class of 2014?
I'm very happy with the outcomes of 2014. The outcome that was announced by the Minister earlier this week has been quality assured by Umalusi. As you know, that Umalusi is a quality assurer for education in this country. We are the shepherd, as the name Umalusi would imply. And we have been entrusted with a huge responsibility of taking care of the country's most valued possession, which is education in the general and further education and training band.
What makes you satisfied with 2014 class? Because there's a drop of 2.9%.
What we've produced in 2014 is quality. You'd know that curriculum has been revised. We now have Curriculum and Assessment Policy Statement, which promises more depth and more breadth. And we have quality assured this curriculum every step of the way, to the point where when we pronounced on the approval of the results, we're sure that what we have produced, what we have quality assured, is the quality that we would want for this country as a quality assurance body.
Dr. Professor Cravett, Umalusi says this time around it's quality. Should we be concerned then that before the CAPS, quality was not an issue?
Now, quality has been an issue always, without a doubt.
But why the emphasis on quality now?
Well, it has been a process of growth. And when the decision was taken to implement the Curriculum and Assessment Policy Statement, we learned from mistakes from the past. We learned from the gaps in the past, and therefore the decision was taken, let's strengthen the curriculum. And to strengthen the curriculum is something that doesn't happen overnight. It's a process of growth.
And strengthening the curriculum meant that we needed to do a lot of trial and error methods. I mean, there's a outcome-based curriculum, for instance, that was implemented and withdrawn in a short space of time. But a lot of people were disenfranchised by that kind of a curriculum. Is that correct to put it that way?
Yeah, you know, with the outcomes-based education was a system that was being implemented that was maybe not the right system for the time.
But South Africa was warned that this is not the right system for you.
Indeed, but you know, one doesn't always listen. And but having said that, you know, some schools did quite well with outcomes-based education. But we've learned that we should change. And we should give credit that we are willing to change. But I think what is important now, we have a good curriculum. There's nothing wrong with the curriculum, and now we need stability. We shouldn't now start tampering with the curriculum again. Let's implement this curriculum as is, with some difficulties in the curriculum for a few years.
Ramokitse, do you get a sense that government this time around is going to stay with this curriculum and not tamper with it? Because that has happened quite often in the past. In the last 20 years, we've changed it how many times? This is the third or fourth time now.
The experts in education will tell you that it takes 5 years for any curriculum to bed. So that we have to allow this curriculum to bed so that it is only after 5 years where you can assess the strengths and weaknesses of this curriculum. But even then, it does not mean that this curriculum has to be changed. It would mean that if it needs a little bit of tweaking here, a little bit of tweaking there, we can do that. But government should not change curriculum within the next 5 years, the next 10 years. We have to stick with this curriculum.
All right, let's look at the dropout rate. For instance, I highlighted it earlier on that between grades 10 and 12, there's been quite a significant dropout rate. Maybe at Umalusi, are you seeing that, and what are the causes of that?
Well, there could be many factors that come into play here. One of them could be intentional culling of students. So that with the pressure that has been brought to bear on the schools to deliver, some principals, some teachers would say, look, I don't want to have these weaker learners proceeding to grade 12. We better cull them, keep them back, and only allow the best to proceed to grade 12. But last year, the Ministry of Basic Education made a ruling that learners who qualify to go to grade 12 because of the progression policy that says a learner can't repeat twice in one phase. That has been implemented, and a lot of learners...
A phase being what?
A phase being grades 10, 11, and 12.
Okay.
That is a phase. So that in the 3 years, a learner should be allowed to fail once. So all those learners who had failed once have been allowed to proceed to grade 12.
Is it correct, though, to benchmark our education on metric only? You're talking about progression right now. The minister was saying that if a learner shows some capabilities, progress them to grade 10, don't cull them at grade 9. But we are so obsessed with matriculant. Is that the realistic measure of our education in this country?
The success of our education system has to be throughout the schooling system.
Right.
Actually, if you want to build a strong education system, you have to start at foundation phase, at grade R. Then focus on quality throughout all the phases of education: foundation phase, intermediate phase, senior phase, and then FET phase. Then you'll be sure to produce quality in the country. You can't just focus on grade 12 and hope to get quality. It has to be throughout the system.
Are we strong at foundation phase? You agree with that statement first, but are we strong at foundation level in your view?
No, we are not at the moment. And you know what happened during the last few years, and understandably so, a lot of effort and resources was put into the FET phase because of our preoccupation with good matric results. And of course, it is important to support these young people. Matric is the gateway to their future. However, not sufficient time and effort and resources went into the foundation phase. But there is now a very clear understanding from the Department of Education that if you want to see sustained change, you need to start where the basis is laid, and the basis is laid in the foundation phase. So at the moment, I don't think we are where we should be, and our results, the annual national assessment results, show us that there are definitely some issues with literacy, some issues with maths in the early years of schooling, also in the intermediate phase. So we are aware of the issues. And there are some programs that are being implemented, but we are not close to where we should be.
All right, let's leave it at that for now. We will come back and discuss very many issues, really, including cheating at Umalusi. I've got Dr. Rakometsi here in the studio with me, who is the CEO of Umalusi, and of course, Professor Sarah Cravat, who is the Dean of Education at the University of Johannesburg. Question time takes a break. Don't go away.
We kick off this week's show by seeing how Kenyans are paying tribute to the victims, as well as not only how they've coped, but how they returned stronger after the attacks.
Last year, images of the 4-day Westgate Mall attack saturated front pages.
In the Democratic Republic of Congo, artists have assembled to celebrate the peace this war-torn country has not had in a long time.
No conflict that can't be solved without a conversation. The Journal, every Saturday at 1:30 on SABC News.
Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time. My guests here in the studio are Dr. Mafu Rakometsi, the CEO of Umalusi, and Professor Sarah Gravett, the Dean of Education at the University of Johannesburg. All right, let's look at the issue of mass copying. Started as allegations, but it's a fact now, Doc, that has happened. How did it happen?
Well, it has been a fact right from the word go. What happened is that with the experience that we had with the senior certificate in June, we 350 centers in KZN. Out of the 350, 153 of them, 153 were found to have cheated. Mass copying happened. And we disqualified them in June. We said, no, we have to be even more vigilant. We have been vigilant all along. And we sent our monitors throughout the country, the external moderators, to look at the papers at the marking centers. And within a week, the external moderators that were sent to KZN and Eastern Cape, they came back to us and said there should be a problem there. We then requested the department to probe the matter, to go deeper into the matter. Lo and behold, they came back with 39 centers from KZN and 19 centers from the Eastern Cape to confirm the observations that Umalusi had made. The department on their own also picked up some problems in 5 other provinces. So we've got 2 categories of provinces here. We've got 2 that were identified by Umalusi, and we've got another 5 that were identified by the department. And that report was submitted to Umalusi. That is when we decided to block the results of those centers.
The probe is underway. How far are you with that now?
We are busy with the department. We have agreed that we have to finish the exercise by the end of January, so that the learners who are innocent can be allowed to continue their lives, to proceed to university, to wherever they want to go.
But it might not be that cut and dry, really. You might find further challenges as you probe.
Those learners who are guilty will not be cleared. What has to happen is that the department will go to those provinces under the watch of Umalusi. The experts from Umalusi will be doing oversight. And then the council will have to clear those centers. A report will have to be submitted, not to me alone, not to the chairperson of Umalusi Council alone, but to a committee of council and to some executive committee members of council, who will then agree on the strength of the report that we would receive to say these centers can be cleared or these individual learners can be cleared.
The findings might suggest to you that there is a mass collusion also between the moderators, the teachers, even the school governing body, principals, and not just only learners. So what do you do with the teachers who are found to have put their hand in the cookie jar?
Look, I'd be very disappointed if people who have been put in a position of trust, educators, teachers, people who have to train our future leaders, captains of industry, people who are going to lead in our government, people who are going to be our medical doctors, would assist learners to cheat, would collude with learners to cheat. I'll be very disappointed. Teachers who were involved in this collusion will have to be dealt with by the different provincial education departments accordingly, according to the penalties that we have.
But Dr. Gravett, it talks to this obsession about the pass rate, doesn't it?
Indeed. Indeed, there's no way that one could in any way not condemn what happened. And I would agree, if teachers were really involved in such copying, what examples are we setting for young people to say the way to get what you want is to be dishonest? This is very, very disappointing.
What needs to be done? Because it's the pressure that is put by the system, by the society on schools, on individual schools, circuits, districts, and the provinces as well.
Yeah, this is exactly the point, that we are overemphasizing the matric results. And I know from schools that we work with very closely that tell you the immense pressure that are placed on teachers to have a 100% pass rate, or to ensure that they have at least an 80% pass rate. And it leads sometimes to desperation, particularly in cases where teachers themselves feel underprepared to deal with the curriculum. But that should still not be an excuse. So we should stop overemphasizing, I think, the matric results. Of course they are important. Of course they are one way in which we diagnose the issues in the education system.
Is it the first time that we see this kind of mass copying, Doc, here? Because this time around, the teachers did not have any benchmark, really. We've never seen any matriculants writing under caps. So they didn't know what to expect. Is it the first time, or has it been happening at this mass scale?
Look, as a quality assurance body, it is for the first time that this mass copying has been brought to our attention. Otherwise, if we had known before, we would have acted way back then.
Perhaps the pressure has always been there then.
The pressure has always been there that people must get 100% pass. And that's unfortunate. We can't just be obsessed with pass rates and not be obsessed with quality.
But this time around, teachers might have panicked and said, we don't have anything to benchmark this class of 2014 against.
But you see, the panic worries me if it happens through so many centers. 39 centers in KZN is just too much. 19 in the Eastern Cape is just too much. So this shows that there could have been a problem that was undetected previously. But it is good that the nation has acted in the manner that it has acted, that we condemn in the strongest possible way on this kind of cheating.
Let's turn around now and talk about teachers, the training of teachers, because it's one thing for teachers to be qualified, but they also need to be trained, Dr. Kravet. They need to be able to stand in front of the learners and be able to articulate the entire syllabus. Do you find that that is a problem?
One should take into consideration that there are two bodies that play a role here. Our universities, doing initial teacher education, and universities need to be very self-critical. Are we preparing our teachers well for the profession? Are we giving them the type of knowledge that will sustain them in the long run? So we can't only, which is sometimes also expected of universities, teach them for a curriculum. We must teach them to be able to implement any curriculum, not a specific curriculum. So firstly, universities must ensure that we play our role. But secondly also, we need lifelong learners in teachers. You can't be qualified once as a teacher and think you must stop learning. It's a process that must carry on while you are a teacher. And there the responsibility lies, of course, with the departments of education, but teachers must also, as professionals, take responsibility. And you will find in those schools where we have good learner retainment, you'll find that teachers form communities of practice. They work together. They support each other. They are continuously learning about what they should be teaching. So we need that responsibility also from teachers themselves.
All right, just ponder on this one as we take a short break. Really, if it was a mistake for the government to shut down teacher colleges. All right, question time takes a break. Don't go away.
Had there been harmony between the South African government and the Nigerian government, which came through in the latter stages, the bodies would have been repatriated quicker.
Now, we always get a lot of criticism as a public broadcaster, but just how far can media go in terms of reporting the facts?
Watch Media Monitor Sundays at 9 a.m. on the SABC News channel.
Art is a personal expression that evokes a flame from within.
Street art, it's it's a vast concept.
Dancing is one of the main art forms on the streets of Africa. Regardless of how it is done, the streets remain expressive. A passionate artist in the central business district of Johannesburg.
Yeah, I've been doing this it's been 7 years or 8 years now.
Brains lost control on what to do then. Words dispute in the mouth of a woman.
That's Kaleidoscope, Sundays, 5:30 p.m. on SABC News.
Welcome back. You are watching Question Time here on SABC. I have Dr. Mafu Rakometsi, CEO of Umalusi, and Professor Sarah Gravett, Dean of Education at the University of Johannesburg. Professor Gravett, let me just start with you now. Was it a mistake for the government to shut down colleges, teacher colleges?
Teacher colleges were shut down after an investigation that was done. So it wasn't just a willy-nilly decision.
But do we see a gap now?
Well, let me explain why they were shut down, because that helps us to understand. There were more than 120 teachers' colleges in the country, which was very expensive, firstly. But secondly, the report indicated that there were some colleges that were doing very well, but a very large number of colleges did not do well with teacher education. So there's this perception that all the teachers that came from teacher colleges were excellent teachers. It is indeed not the case. A large percentage of our teachers now in the system come from teacher education colleges. So the issue was not, I think, the colleges as such. What we need to ask ourselves is whether the programs that are being offered by universities are relevant programs and whether they prepare students well for the teaching profession. There was one other issue that happened is after teacher education colleges were closed down, there was no additional money given to universities for teacher training. So initially it was problematic. Universities had to take up foundation phase and intermediate phase training without additional resources. I think the situation has improved in the meantime, and many universities are doing very well. But let's also be honest, there's unevenness in the system in terms of the quality of teachers that are being delivered.
All right, we're not going to stay on that particular issue. I would love to, but because there are so many issues to touch on. Dr. Rakometsi, let me come back to you. You know, Lon Sharp, an economist, yesterday postulates that universities are channeling black learners towards humanities, and they are depriving them really somewhat, or not encouraging them, let me put it that way, to take up sciences, maths, accounting, and so on and so on. Do you find that that's the case?
Well, I've not done a study in that regard, and I would not be able to confirm that. But if that is happening, that would be very unfortunate for this country. Because we have to give our young people equal opportunity at universities. We can't channel people into certain fields based on the race and the color
perhaps
of their skin.
Based on thinking that where they come from, they were not strong in mathematics and in science. Therefore, just give them general studies. So humanities will suit them perfectly fine then.
When we quality assure education in South Africa as Umalusi, we don't distinguish between black schools and white schools, so that whatever grade a learner passes at, it will be the same regardless of race. So for people to say because he comes from a particular race, therefore he comes from a school that is weaker, he can't do this program, it will be unfortunate. Because when we look at the figures at Umalusi, we look at the figures, we don't even consider color, we don't consider race. So it will be very unfortunate if that is happening.
But Dr. Gravett, isn't it that realistic, though, to say, look, you are strong here, rather pursue this career as opposed to trying this one where you're really going to be frustrated and drop out?
We have minimum requirements for for all our qualifications that we offer. And of course, students must meet the minimum requirements. You can't put students into a course without them meeting the minimum requirements. However, at the University of Johannesburg, we have a very strong first-year experience program where we understand that our students some of them with great potential, come from schools where they might not have had the best education. And therefore, we spend a lot of time and effort in their first year to give them support so that by the time that they reach their second year, that they can start flying. So we have a tutor system. We have extra classes. We give enrichment courses to these students. So I think it's a generalization that what was made. And of course, what is also true, we can't force a student to study a specific course if the student is not interested in that course.
Maybe not just only interested, but really if you recognize and appreciate that they will struggle if they take this particular route.
Sure.
I think that's fair, isn't it?
That's fair. However, if they have the interest and they meet the minimum requirements, it is important that we accommodate also these students. We at the University of Johannesburg, if you look at the quintiles system in the country that looks at the richest and the poorest schools, and we know there is a correlation between the educational attainment of learners, whether they come from poor communities and whether they come from affluent communities. But at UJ, it's part of our way of thinking that we must accommodate a number of these students coming from quintile 1 schools, because some of them have wonderful potential. So we must give access for these learners also.
All right, Dr. Ramoketsi, let's look at the class of 2014, for instance. Are you getting a sense that the quality that was produced there is the quality that will go on really and be absorbed by the marketplace? They will be able to find jobs with what you've seen right now, vis-a-vis also the curriculum that we're talking about right now?
Look, I'm able to vouch for the quality of the students that we produce in South Africa. We benchmark our qualifications with other countries where they have equivalent qualifications. So I'm able to say, with our quality assurance processes that are rigorous, I can vouch for the quality that we produce for the South African market, for the South African universities, and for the workplaces in South Africa. So I'm satisfied with the quality that we have produced.
All right. And there are those then, let's go back to matric right now, there are those then who didn't make it. And what kind of support then is there from government? Obviously, you are a quality assurer, but surely you will know of the systems that are in place to support those who would want to try again.
What we have in the system is that we are going to have supplementary examinations that are going to come in March, and those learners who did not make it can write supplementary examinations, improve their grades, and even improve their symbols to the point where they are able to qualify for bachelor's or for a diploma where they were lower than the diploma pass. Also, that there are institutions that we have all over the country that could help them for the whole year, for them to again write toward the end of 2015 their national senior certificate.
All right, and what can we expect for the class of 2015, very briefly?
What can we expect?
2015 now, in your view, having seen all the new curriculum and the new teachers now, and the teachers being able to articulate it better, and then what's your sense, very briefly?
One would hope that where we saw that there are problems, for instance, in maths, in physical sciences, in languages, that more would be invested also in preparing our teachers to support our students and our learners better.
Okay. All right, we're going to have to leave it at that. So much to talk about. We've run out of time. But thank you very much. That was Question Time for today. Big thank you to our guests and to you for watching the show. We welcome your feedback via email on questiontime@sabc.co.za, or you can tweet us. Our Twitter handle is @questiontime24. From me and the rest of the crew, have yourself a wonderful time. Goodbye.